We track content starts and content completes. That's like one of our big metrics. And we also track daily active use. So like, how many times has this person come back and use the app? And when we rolled out the Managing Stress program, we did notice not only an increase in those and, content starts and content completes, but also in daily active use. So people coming back. I'd say like the golden amount for a Headspace member is 3 or 4 daily active, uses or days active in a week. Like that's really like the amount that someone not only uses in order to retain as a member, like becomes a subscriber, renews their subscription, but also, and I think this is really important because it is a little different for Headspace than other apps, reduces their stress. Like it actually had to, we actually measure that in the app. And so, when folks are filling out a monthly perceived stress score survey in the profile, and in order to actually reduce their stress, like our external evidence base that we've, worked on with external collaborators shows us that really people need to meditate at least 10 minutes a day, 3 times a week in order to get measurable stress reduction. And so, that daily active use, those content plays, like, yeah, they're helpful in terms of like product mechanics, like product engagement. Yes. And as far as health outcomes, like they're also quite vital. It's like, it won't actually work for you and it won't give you the benefits that you want to get unless you actually use it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Berman, and this is The Irrational Mind. This is the first episode in a series of conversations we're going to have with people to understand our irrational mind. This podcast is for product, marketing, design people who want to get inspired to build and grow products that work. And to do that, we're talking to people who really get human behavior. Yes, you could talk to 5 users to improve your onboarding, but why not just take the playbook of a game designer? Yes, you could launch and learn your latest marketing campaign, but why not learn from the dog trainer who really understands how to design incentives, or a magician who understands how to capture our attention? So we're digging for gold here, and we'll talk to a variety of people and companies to help you grow and build the work. And today, we're starting by tackling meditation. What can we learn about getting people to meditate that you could then use in your work and in your life? Meditation is something I find fascinating. Basically, it's something anyone can do. It requires no advanced degree. You can do it whenever and wherever you want. You don't need gym equipment. You don't need other people. You don't need to pay for it. And people say if you do it, you feel better. Headspace is the leader in getting people to start meditating. And today we are talking to their VP of Design and Research, Thompson. But if it's so easy and there are so few barriers to entry, why do we need help meditating? Why don't we just do it all the time? In other words, why do we need help, or why do we need Headspace? Well, we need it because meditation is available whenever, because meditation is free, because you can do meditation alone, and because the reward is delayed. So given all that, it's actually one of the most difficult behaviors you could ever design. In fact, I couldn't imagine a harder habit for people to start. So what can PMs and marketers learn from Headspace? Well, today we will dive into what they have learned about getting us to do a really hard thing. So the essence of behavior change, and maybe a secret to innovation, is to make something easier. Think about Amazon Prime or Uber. And we want to make it more motivating. Think about TikTok. So the aim is to reduce barriers and increase benefits. At the base level, this is how Headspace broke through and built their massively popular meditation platform. They made meditation easier by making it shorter, just 10 minutes, and they ask you to pay, which can increase commitment and motivation. And they also make it a wee bit more immediately gratifying by focusing on use cases for anxiety and sleep. So Thompson, the head of design and research, will talk about the ways they have the 7-day and the 30-day retention. And I do think Headspace has helped people to start practicing meditation. They have made it easy to start. And honestly, that is not easy. So credit where credit is due. Product people, take note. But the question is continuing. And this is where I'm a little bit skeptical. Headspace says to reduce stress, you need to use it at least 3 times a week for 10 minutes. That may not sound like a lot, but it feels like a lot. So what is the theory of continuing? You could imagine you could show people other members who are successful and give them aspiration to keep going. Or you could show them failure so people don't feel so alone if they are also struggling. You could make it really, really easy to start and require zero commitment up front, or you could ask for a lot of money and a longer commitment. Do you allow people to use it whenever they want, or do you restrict times and freedom? So anywhere, anytime is clearly not the recipe to help people continue to meditate, or we wouldn't need Headspace. So how far do you go? Well, I'd be bullish on an app that was even more paternalistic than Headspace. Take my money and my mind, Headspace. Go on, take it. And on a more personal note, my day job is CEO of Irrational Labs. Irrational Labs is a SWAT team of behavioral scientists. We help companies design and build products that customers use, love, and pay for. This podcast is an exploration of behavior change across different domains. If you like it, you may also like working with us. Give me a shout at hello@irrationallabs.com and mention the podcast. And also throw us a bone, review, on Apple or Spotify podcasts. Thank you in advance. It really does help. Headspace is a stress reduction app. It is also well known for meditation. And so today we're going to focus on meditation. And I would be remiss to not start off with the idea that meditation is difficult. It is hard for most humans to do for a variety of reasons we will likely get into. But maybe you could just kick us off with kind of the big question, which is, what does Headspace know about getting people to meditate?
Yeah. Well, we know that it needs to feel palatable and easy and approachable, and it needs to be demystified. So the early kind of origin story of Headspace was that Rich and Andy, who are the co-founders, wanted to demystify meditation and demystify mindfulness because it can seem so esoteric and, it's a multi-thousands-year-old tradition. So what we know is that breaking down the practice of meditation into bite-sized lessons and making those available on someone's phone in their pocket it's absolutely necessary for people to actually be able to learn that skill.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense with what we know about behavioral science and taking what we say is the path of least resistance. So basically, if something's hard, we will probably not do it as much as if it's easy. And so if you tell me I have to meditate for 60 minutes versus 10 versus 2, it's potentially likely that I will be more interested in meditation. So maybe dive into that. How did you actually make meditation easier? Like, what are the guts behind that?
Yeah, great question. So, and I wasn't here for that portion of the Headspace history, but when Andy and Rich founded Headspace, which was now 13 years ago, they started off doing live events and they were teaching meditation live, in person, mostly in London. And then when they transitioned to making it into a digital app, they said, like, okay, so how can we break down these skills into something that is like, so achievable and approachable and kind of everyday, like kind of bring it down to earth. Like what would that look like? And so what they ended up doing was breaking down meditation into 8 techniques. So like the basics in Headspace teach you 8 techniques, body scan being one of them, visualization, et cetera, et cetera. And so they broke it down into those 8 techniques. And then they said, okay, for most people, they are not going to be able to sit for a meditation for, 30 minutes, an hour, like the kinds of things that if you go to a meditation class in person, you might do. So they said, okay, so how can we like bring it even more to an approachable level? And that's where Take 10 came from. And Take 10 was 10 minutes a day of meditation for 10 days. And that was sort of the minimum that Andy Puddicombe felt someone needed to do to learn the basics of meditation. And in that, Take 10 minutes of meditation for 10 days, they would learn those 8 meditation techniques. And they're really wonderful, instructive videos that show, each technique so that they become less abstract and more concrete. Like, hey, this is what it really means to note. Here is a beautiful animated video that actually takes you through that process and uses real life metaphors that are like very easy for anyone to grok. And this is, what it means to be an observer of your thoughts. This is what it means to remember the blue sky. Like there's just this very simple clarity to each of those little, what we call expert guidance videos. And so essentially start with that Take 10 And then just to like go throwback all the way back to then when the app was first founded, because it's a little different now, you went from 10 minutes a day, 10 days in a row, to 15 minutes of meditation a day for 15 days, and then 20 minutes of meditation a day for 20 days. So you're kind of like, gradually stepping into more of a meditation.
So that seems like a theory of change that basically says if you can do something kind of hard, then you can do something a little bit more hard, and we're going to kind of progress you along, and you'll progressively get to be this Buddha. The other approach, I know it's so easy. The other approach would be what is classically done by many people who are like new and see their friends doing it, is sign up for a 10-day meditation without having ever meditated and then just say, well, we'll see what happens. And you're basically saying, I'm going to do the really hard thing up front, and then after that, kind of like teach myself or hope that something like increases my meditation in my daily life. So how do you think about those two like different theories of change? And I know that, I don't know if Headspace does a 10-day meditation sponsored or something, but how should people think about starting?
Yeah, that's a good, well, just to clarify, so I'm answering your question correctly, do you mean like a 10-day Vipassana retreat, like where someone is like,
exactly,
I'm going to just go ahead and sign up for a 10-day silent, yeah. We don't actually, though I kind of wish we would, offer in-person retreats. It would be so fun. It's an interesting, I love where you're going with this. Like, I think Headspace has gone the other way. I think that we see so many people who come to us in states of need, that we have realized that like it's more important to be approachable and like welcoming and very easy to grok, in order to help people who are in like varying states of duress. And so, while there are people who use Headspace for like sort of the achievement oriented side of it, there are also plenty of people who come because they're like in the middle of the night unable to sleep. We've had members who download the app while having like a very panicky response to finding out a loved one is, in the hospital. Like, there's sort of like levels of duress that we respond to that kind of require that we have to be much more like quick and simple and easy to grok than like a 10-day, leave your job for 10 days and go to this retreat center, and you're going to be silent, and you may never have done this before, and it's so,
and you're going to be a better person. That's the promise.
Exactly. And
yeah.
It probably will be, but that's like, not everyone is quite there yet. In fact, I'd say half the time I'm not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a nice insight that's basically like Headspace has kind of moved to a world where you're helping people at the point of need when they come in. So basically you're addressing any kind of acute issue that they have. Can you talk more about like either that evolution or that finding of saying, in general, you want to meditate, but today you want to calm down? That kind of like idea of reducing stress.
Yeah. And this is the origin story of the SOS meditations that are in the Headspace app. So, over time, we realized there were people who were not necessarily coming in to learn meditation. Like, that is one mental model for sure. There are people who do that. And then there are people who come in because, they're having a more immediate need. And so what we call it at Headspace is the vitamin versus the aspirin. So we have people who come in, they need an aspirin, and that's where like our SOS series comes in. Some of the really great sleep SOSs that are in our sleep section of the app. So there's like one called Waking Up at Night, and then like one that's like Pain in the Night. Things that are more of a, like an aspirin type, like an immediate need. And then the vitamin crew, the vitamin users are folks who are coming in actively to learn meditation, and are much happier to kind of like go through the basics 1, 2, and 3, and do different courses on different topics like creativity or performance at work or things like that. So and I don't think I'm perfectly answering your question, so we stay with questions.
It's great. No, perfect. So maybe it seems like those are two different types of users. I'm going to learn meditation, or I'm going to really solve a problem that I have right now. in behavioral science, we kind of, it's like the aspirin, but we call it like present bias, which is like, today I want to do something. My future self wants to be a better person and meditate every day, but today I need help. I need something. And so maybe the stress reduction is kind of like that. You're solving the thing they actually need today. How do you think about the retention in general and this like focus on 7 days versus 30 days versus forever?
What we have found over the course of especially like the last 3 years in the Headspace app, is that when folks come in, we have a relatively short window to explain to them either how to use the Headspace app or how to use it for different need states. And especially that first 7 days is valuable, but we've also noticed the first 14 days is valuable. And then it kind of like the high, need for guidance ends around day 30. So that's just, what we've noticed from looking at our member base. What we have experimented with is in that first 7 days, how can we give people more grounding on, what is in our content library? Like, what are the types of things that you could work on? Sleep, movement, mindful eating, stress, anxiety, meditation and mindfulness. And we've created a series of videos that are called How to Headspace that our wonderful content team made, but they're really guiding people on like, how can you use this? And like, what are the different components of this overall app that could help you based on, different need states. So that's one. And then in that first 30 days, just to like broaden out the frame to that first 30 days, once we started studying that 30 days and really studying it at depth and really looking at members, like we actually did an incredible diary study on this where we had 25 people track their like experience with Headspace for 30 days and give us very honest feedback throughout. And it was just a fabulous research study that our design research team did. So highly recommend that to anyone working in product. Like get your design research teams to do this because it showed us kind of the other side of what was happening for members in the app.
What was one insight from that?
Oh, we have hundreds. It's going to be, yeah, it's like there's so many. So the big insight was people needed more concrete guidance in that first 30 days, and they needed it more in sort of a step-by-step mechanism. And so what it led to was our 30-day managing stress program, which is now live in the Headspace app. Kisanga is the teacher on that one. But what we realized is that people needed daily actions that were related to, using the Headspace app and to their need state. And then they also needed a kind of sense of reward, which I'm sure you as a behavioral scientist could tell us like that's, exactly what people would need, but they needed a sense of like completion. So like, I've done this action, great. The system is saying, check, you've done it. Now I move on to the next activity in my day, as part of this managing stress program. And then tomorrow I have different activities and it's like a very sequential journey. So that diary study showed us like the level of guidance that people needed.
So how do you guys study if this actually works in the app? Like, are you doing an A/B test? Are you, is it like a slow rollout, or like what's the method to study if this stuff actually drives retention across the board?
Yeah. So we track content starts and content completes. That's like one of our big metrics. And we also track daily active use. So like, how many times has this person come back and used the app? And when we rolled out the managing stress program, we did notice not only an increase in those and, content starts and content completes, but also in daily active use. So people coming back, are kind of, I'd say like the golden amount for a Headspace member is 3 or 4 daily active, uses or days active in a week. Like that's really like the amount that someone not only uses in order to retain as a member, like, becomes a subscriber, renews their subscription, but also, and I think this is really important because it is a little different for Headspace than other apps, reduces their stress. Like it actually has to, we actually measure that in the app. And so, when folks are filling out a monthly perceived stress score survey in the profile, and in order to actually reduce their stress, like our external evidence base that we've, worked on with external collaborators shows us that really people need to meditate at least 10 minutes a day, 3 times a week in order to get measurable stress reduction. And so, that daily active use, those content plays, like, yeah, they're helpful in terms of like product mechanics, like product engagement, yes. And as far as health outcomes, like they're also quite vital. It's like it won't actually work for you and it won't give you the benefits that you want to get unless you actually use it. So
Okay, so we've got basically right now we've got make it easy, which is like move from long meditations to 10 minute. We've got maybe lead with an aspirin or pain reduction sort of thing, like stress, to get people in the door and interested. And then we have this idea of kind of step by step guiding people, saying, look, here's the way to do it, so you're not lost. And maybe you have some check boxes to feel good about. What other things work to keep people going, during the 7 days and past the 7 days?
yeah, great question. So I'll give you two important ones. So we do have a run streak, and it's been in the Headspace app for a very long time, and it surfaces after your meditation. So there's like a little end card that gives you kind of a tick. You did it. You see your run streak update, and there's a little mindful quote that kind of sends you on into your day. And then that run streak is also visible to the user in their profile. We call our users members, so to the member in their profile. Now, I will sidebar to say we got a lot of member feedback about the run streak over the years. And so our designers, being the human-centered designers they are, listened to that feedback, and they actually have a feature now in the profile where you can show and hide the run streak. So for people who feel that it is overly gamifying the practice of meditation and mindfulness, or they don't want their mental health tools to be gamified, which, fully understand, that's a valid, user type. They have the ability, there's a little eye icon, and they can show and hide that feature, and people use it. Now, the other thing in the first 7 days that we found to be really useful is actually, and this sounds wild to break down meditation that's already short into something even simpler, but we did notice that for some people, the very idea of eyes closed, seated meditation, even in the way that Headspace teaches it, which is, you don't have to be sitting lotus style on the floor. You don't have to be in a monastery. You could be in your office. You could be in your home, whatever, sitting in a chair. Even that was a bit intimidating for some people. And so we broke it down even further to like, what is the bare minimum tiny step that you could do that is a step towards being able to, sit for a meditation? And that is a breathing exercise. And so the very top of what we call our dynamic playlist, which is on the Today tab in the Headspace app on the home screen, the very top is a breathing exercise. And that refreshes every day. It's different every day, but it's the first activity in that to-do list that is on the Today tab, because it's so simple and you get this little dopamine hit of achievement from doing it. You not only feel a little bit better, but you also have achieved something that then you can kind of move into the next items on the list, which in order are a video, like a daily video, and then the daily meditation in a more kind of posture of like, I've already accomplished something. So that was what we really noticed, like needed to happen in the first 7 days. And we're still experimenting with changing some of that, like with the breathing exercises, but that proved to be a very valuable way for especially our brand new members to like get into the practice of meditation without it being, just too intimidating.
Yeah, that's very nice. You're basically taking 10 minutes and mushing it into 20 seconds and saying like,
Yeah.
look, this is, kind of foot in the door, which is this idea that if you do one small thing, maybe you'll do more, and starting with breathing. Can you talk a little bit about the open eyes idea that you've started to do?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, actually. So we have now, in part from qualitative member feedback, and then in part just from looking at the quantitative metrics in our product data, we've noticed that people are gravitating towards video more. So, that's the quant side. And then the qual side, we've had members for varying reasons, some of them, from prior trauma, some of them from, just sort of intimidation factor around meditation, who have said, I don't really feel comfortable sitting with my eyes closed. Like, are there more eyes open activities that I could do? Because as soon as I close my eyes, I have feelings that I would rather not, address, or things that come up, or things that are just really uncomfortable, or I don't feel safe in my physical environment, etc. So what we did is created more eyes open meditation. So they're kind of these like visual meditations, and especially Rosie Acosta and Dora Mao, who are two of our meditation teachers, have some beautiful ones in our national parks collection. But they guide you on a walk through nature, and so there is, there's a calming benefit to that, the way a meditation would operate for you. But there isn't that kind of like added, um, like what can be really uncomfortable for some people, practice of needing to close your eyes in order to get that benefit.
That's great. So it seems like the app has kind of lowered the barrier, the psychological and logistical barrier to doing this. But there have to be people out there who are just good at meditating. Like we all have the friends who are like, they wouldn't do an app, they would just do it. They're just better than all of us. And so what have you learned about kind of these outliers or folks who have actually figured something out about the practice of meditation, and potentially could be applied to the rest of us?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, what we've observed in our long-term members, like folks who have been using Headspace for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, gosh, some since the origin, like 12 years, 13 years, is that because they've, kind of built a habit or a practice of meditation and mindfulness, they're really comfortable with that. So then they move into wanting more kind of insights and more like wisdom traditions, and things like the Long Time Academy, which is a really wonderful podcast and guided mindful practices series that's in the Headspace app. So it's sort of like they have now, you know, created a habit of meditating and have relative ease there, but now they kind of want to deepen the insights that they're gaining from it. So we have like the pro level course, which is for that. There's a couple levels of the pro course, and there's semi-guided and even unguided, which is essentially a timer for people who are very advanced and just they want like the companionship of the app, but they don't necessarily need all the verbal guidance. Like the verbal guidance actually becomes a bit of a distraction for them.
Mhm.
So we've definitely seen that. I think what's also important to bring up is that we have noticed from a lot of our different research that people come to Headspace for meditation, and often the more that they do meditation, they gain so much more present moment awareness and so much more awareness of how they are feeling, in this moment and then in general in their lives, that they start to realize that they have other things that they want to work on. And that's why we have coaching, therapy, psychiatry, like coming into our overall ecosystem. It's available right now to our enterprise members, but coming soon in different forms for our consumer members. But like people come in, they start to get present with how they're feeling, which meditation and mindfulness does, or increasing your present moment awareness. And then they realize like, like I'm actually really anxious, or I'm really stressed out, or like actually have like a feeling of sadness. I wonder what this is. And then from there, meditation actually becomes a bit of a gateway into like more deep personal work. Like, okay, now I now I really want to like handle these things that have existed in my past for a long time, that I've never really felt comfortable handling, or that I wasn't even quite aware were bugging me. And now that I'm, more present, more settled, more here, more aware in my daily life, I'm realizing, there's something I want to work on here. And so that's where like, we even we saw it in that 30-day diary study, like where people say, I actually like could use some human support.
Yeah. It's a nice observation on kind of expertise, by which if you get to be an expert at something, you continue to be curious about ways to better yourself. So if you're, a professional athlete, you're constantly still thinking about ways to improve your form and make these small adjustments. And so it's possible that maybe what keeps folks going as they start is that the possibility of getting even better or evolve, like it is kind of a ladder where folks are maybe moving up it. Like you practice, you see the results, and you want to practice a little bit more. Um, it, Do you think that is fair, where expertise is like you're becoming a little bit more curious about yourself? And if that's the case, then how would we apply that to folks who are beginning, who actually get, I am someone who has given up many times. I have downloaded multiple meditation apps and have failed. And so I'm trying to think, would the intervention for me be to maybe get a little bit more curious like about myself, or how would you prescribe an intervention to someone like myself, who I hope I'm not alone in giving up multiple times?
You're not alone.
Okay.
You're not alone, not at all. In fact, we see this behavioral pattern in our data where oftentimes people will download Headspace, they will use it for a while, and then they sort of disappear, and then they come back, and then they disappear, and they come back. And what it often, just to like give you this, because I think you'll enjoy this, what it often coincides with are life events. So something will happen in their life where they realize they need deeper support, like whether that's a relationship ending, a job ending, getting pregnant is a big one. Like, these big sort of like life stage transformation moments. And then they re-download the app or re-sign up because they're like, ooh, I need coaching and guidance through this phase. Like all my previous skills worked for me for where I was, but now that I'm, kind of faced with this new challenge, I need some new coping skills and new guidance, so a new support. So there's that. But here's what I would to prescribe an intervention to your need state. I would say that this is where the user behavior of habit stacking or of creating like anchors that are reminders comes in. And so what we've seen in successful, what I would, it's weird to call someone a successful Headspace user, but people who have formed a habit with Headspace, what we have seen is that they often pair it with something else that they do in daily life. So Andy Puttycombe used to recommend, hey, pair this with brushing your teeth. You wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, let that be kind of the anchor or the cue that then leads you into your morning meditation. We've also seen members who pair it with morning exercise. So we've an example of that would be someone taking their running shoes and putting those by the door and putting their chair that they meditate in by the window, and then creating this kind of habit stack in the morning of going first to the meditation chair, doing their meditation, and then going and putting their running shoes on and going out the door for their morning run. And there's a lot of examples like that, but I would anchor it to a behavior you are already doing, because that's what makes it easier. Then you're not going to not brush your teeth in the morning. Well, for most of us,
yeah.
And so that being kind of like your little mental pinpoint, and like, okay, good, I did that. Oh, what's next? Now I'm going to get some Headspace. I'm going to take 10 or 15 or 20, whatever it is for that person.
Nice. And what I like about that example is also the redesign of the environment. So this person, this mythical creature who does all the things, but probably is a real person, changed her bedroom environment by which she has the chair next to her bed. And so you could imagine a world where you'd have to go upstairs or downstairs, and maybe like in that time in between, you just forget. Like in product design, if you add an extra field, people drop off. It's like, that's crazy. Like, did you get distracted? It's like, we had you. And so having maybe your meditation thing on a different floor or farther from where you'll be actually could be this barrier. And having the chair there potentially could be a trigger to remember and to do the thing. So that's very nice. Kind of changing your environment to change your behavior.
I think so. We live in a world where attention itself has become a commodity, and everything is vying for your attention. And there are a lot of apps that are monetized based on how much they can capture and keep your attention. And Headspace is pretty unusual in that our explicitly stated goal is to give you more command and control over your own attention. Like, that is pretty unusual in the world of product design. Like, the kind of like hooked mentality is, get people in and keep them in for as long as possible. And that is absolutely the opposite at Headspace. At Headspace, our intention is get in for what you need for you to feel better and then get off of the app and go live your life. And that's why for us, like daily active days is a more important measurement, or like, a content play, but not like minute in the app. Like we would not ever measure that, because that would actually defeat the purpose of what we are doing. So, um, yeah. So anyway, I think there's like something, a little unusual and like a bit weird about that, but
Mhm.
that's kind of it's a different mentality.
Yeah, so it's not time spent, but it is like it's opening something, and lovely. It aligns with the user's goals. So just kind of like Peloton is like they can want you to get back in the app, but that's good because you do want to exercise. That's the goal of you signing up for the app. And so you have this like beautiful alignment of business and user intentions. Um, but how do you bring folks back to the app? So what's the reminder strategy that you guys have figured out?
Yeah, we have a couple. So we have a daily mindful moment, which is a notification that someone gets, to their lock screen that has like a very lovely kind of insight, a little wisdom moment. So it's a nice reminder both of some of the kinds of insights you have when you're doing meditation and mindfulness, and then also just like a little bit of a breather in the day, So when you get it, you kind of are like, oh, that's really lovely. So we have that. And then we also have little notifications and reminders that, we'll send to people from our internal life cycle team that are around like different topics that that person has been interested in. So, if we have a new sleep cast, which is our sleep stories, and this is someone who has used sleep content a lot in the past, we can send a little like, hey, we actually have this new, um, you know, I know I'm talking about our national parks partnership a lot because I'm kind of obsessed with it, but we have a new sleep cast in Joshua Tree. Or, for our kids and parents, like we have a new Sesame Street Elmo sleep story, and which are very beloved. So these sort of like reminders based on your interest become really important. So it's like actually connecting with, why is someone here? Like
Mhm.
what are the topics they're interested in, and what are the like kind of obvious need states or like areas of their overall health that they're clearly wanting to work on if they're doing like a sleep content predominantly or meditation, and then aligning those notifications and reminders to them, so they're tailored to what a person is doing versus just kind of a like, hey, you forgot to come back to the app, which would
Yeah.
again never
I think
do.
yeah. This is really nice because it seems so meditation, and I'm gonna so forgive me if I offend you, has no benefit in the beginning. It takes a while. I'm sure having a deep breath is going to be good, but as you said, you need to come back. You need to do it about, 3 times a week for 10 minutes to really feel some like sustained stress reduction. And so you kind of have to give people some benefit to do a thing if they're going to do the thing. And so I like the notification strategy that's paired with, and like obvious in hindsight, but probably not obvious to most teams, like paired with the interest, the thing that they are most curious about, that they have expressed an interest to dive deeper in. And if they can't actually achieve that end outcome of stress, at least they're kind of learning on it and exploring it, and making that association that meditation could, in theory, in the future, if they do it, uh, work for them and the interest that they're focused on. So I'm sure that probably wasn't as obvious to the content team in the beginning, but it seems obvious now that of course you should pair notification with some interest, especially for a product that has delayed benefits.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
also, here's what I'll say about meditation. It actually does have immediate benefits. What we have found is that people do actually feel better. Most of our users feel better right away from doing that first meditation. Like there is an immediate value of their, that sort of sense of relaxation and their nervous system, kind of coming down, landing a little bit. It's not necessarily something that sustains though, that just
Yeah.
from one session. So where it becomes really important to create a habit is like, how are you then able to respond more resiliently in times of stress, to like for your actual like measurable stress levels to come down, to a degree that is actually substantial. Like those require creation of a habit. But there is, for most people, I will say, not for everyone, but like for most people, there is an immediate, um, sense of calming that happens just from one
Yeah.
person.
I get an immediate benefit from being able to tell people that I meditated. I'm like, I just did this thing and that makes me feel good. To tell you. Anyway,
No,
so
that's brilliant. Honestly, that's probably a user type that we should be studying.
yeah.
Oh my God.
I
The
mean the
preacher mentality.
yeah, or the idea that basically, meditation is tough because it's by yourself. And it is funny that folks pay to go to a 10-day meditation to sit in silence because you could do that by yourself. But intuitively, we know that that's really difficult to sit for 10 days by yourself and not do it. So you're putting yourself in a situation with other people that kind of create the norm that other people are doing this. So it's like this conundrum that meditation is very solo, and yet it kind of has to involve other people, to like make it seem either more real or kind of, create an identity for you that could sustain the beginning, at least, before you have that habit stacking habit or habit
Yeah.
stacking magic moments. So Headspace is in a category of products where the benefit can be delayed, where in the future people will see a benefit, and today they may not see as much of a benefit as tomorrow. And so how do you help them like understand the future benefit, or at least acknowledge that it could be coming?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what we do to acknowledge the future benefit and like, that it may take a little while to get kind of the big feeling results that you're hoping for, is, well, we do many things, but the kind of key one that I'd love to talk about is, in the profile in the Headspace app, we have a section called My Progress. And in that feature, we allow people to do a self-reported measure on stress, the PSS, and a self-reported measure of their anxiety, which the GAD-7. The anxiety, they can fill out the survey once every 2 weeks. The stress survey, they can fill out once a month. And then we nudge people in the app. We have like a little modal that comes up that says, hey, it's time to do your monthly stress check-in. Would you like to do it now, or would you like to be reminded later? And they can choose one of two options. And if they do it now, they fill out those 10 questions, and then they have the option to write a little journal entry at the end that is essentially kind of the reminder to themselves of like, why were they feeling that way that month? And what this allows is for people to see their change over longer spans of time. Because I would say like a very important part of meditation and mindfulness and working on one's mental health is like, there's also a real value to zooming out and looking at your life from a longer span of time versus this quick immediacy that the modern world like really loves to funnel us into. But to have these moments to zoom out and go, oh, wow, my stress was really high that month. Like, wow, it was really high in, July. What was going on there? And then you can read your journal entry and see like, that was, when a loved one was sick, or XYZ happened, or oh wow, it was lower there. Well, that's interesting because that's like when I started meditating every day. So that's interesting. Like there's some correlation between like what I was doing and how I was feeling. And I think that what's really grounding about like having that stress score and the anxiety score is that you're actually quantifying something that can feel so nebulous and so messy and so
Yeah.
confusing. Like, I don't know, am I making progress? I don't know. Am I less stressed out this month than last month? I don't know. And so,
Yeah. I mean, I
to
think,
actually see it,
yeah.
it's cool.
And it's kind of a problem that I would imagine you face at kind of the brand level, which is like, it's really a hard thing for me to detect. This small change in my behavior drove me to feel less stressed out on an average basis. Like it's hard for humans to attribute this idea that I meditate now 10 minutes a day. I mean, you could have changed your walk to work, or you could have started dating somebody new. There's lots of things in their environment. So I do like this idea for having you guys take more credit. We're having basically saying like, okay, well, I'm going to get to reflect, but also, we are a part of that story, versus, maybe other maybe they attribute it just purely to themselves. We tend to take more credit than we deserve. So feel free to punt into this if you want, but I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about, so what have you guys learned about the paying to meditate, like the premium mental model versus at this state of the game, I think there's almost no real maybe a few free meditations, but 90% of the meditations or sleep or stress are going to be behind a paywall. Tell me about that like process and that decision.
Yeah, it's a great question. When we first experimented with changing the way that our free versus premium model worked, a big part of it was around the confusingness of our different subscription types. Like it was actually very confusing in the product. Like, do I have free membership? Do I not? Like, there's quite a lot of free content here for me. So maybe I do have a paid subscription, but I don't have access to everything. So why is that? Because we had elements that were free and elements that weren't. Now almost everything is behind the paywall, but we are actually experimenting with changing some of that. What we noticed though, just from I think this was like very relevant to you and the topic of behavior. What we noticed is that for people who were paying, that was this is like obvious, I guess, in hindsight, but it felt new to us when we were researching it. We noticed that people who paid had a much higher degree of utilization of the app. They were much more active, more active days. They were, much more consistent in their use of the app because like they had a sense of like financial accountability to use it. So, for people who could afford to pay for it, they were using it in, that payment was kind of like their, stake in the ground to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to like invest in feeling better or invest in myself, my mental health and well-being. And I'm going to actually use it. And I'll give you like some data on this because I think it's interesting. What we have noticed amongst our users who are what we call B2B or enterprise users who are getting it covered as a covered benefit through work, they have much lower active days, much lower utilization because to them, it's a free thing. It's like, okay, it's like, oh, fun. It becomes like a nice to have versus someone who has invested in it and said, this is something that, I want to pay for because I want to make sure I'm doing this habit and I want to start to, feel better, or I want to learn this practice of meditation.
Thank you for listening. If you like the show, go to irrationallabs.com to say hello to us or post a review on Apple or Spotify. Big thank you to the show's two Jacks, Jack Buer, our writer, and Jack Steger, our genius editor. Until next time.